guys, it's Sunny, aka Daddy Pig. I wanted to do a quick deck tech on the deck that I first used on our first Commander nights that we ever filmed. It's actually one of my more favorite decks that I use all the time. Of course, I'm talking about Ghired, the Conclave Exile. Now, I went ahead and broke the deck apart already. I'm going to show you guys the individual pieces of the deck, what does what and why it's there, because of course this was a precon before. Starting from ramp to populate, of course, which is a big part, mechanic of the deck. And the necessary tune-ups that I feel are really needed to make the deck hit hard and fast, of course. Hopefully we can bring you guys a lot more deck techs. That is something that we'd like to do, of course. We would love to show you some little tips and tricks, especially if you are new to the Commander Forum, what you could do, what cards that you might like to put in your deck, if they work, if they are your color. You know, here at the Upkeep, we love to use a variety of colors. You know, we all have our favorite color, of course, as everyone should. But we do also have those staples that we just like to put in every little deck of ours that just work for us. And hopefully you guys enjoy the video and like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends if they are new to the Commander page or if they're looking for something along the lines of Ghired, the Conclave Exile, you know, style play. Without further ado, let's get to it. So I will put on the screen the number of, you know, creatures, instants, sorceries, and artifacts, etc. Everything that goes in the deck, just so you can see exactly what's in there. We're going to start off with the creatures, of course. I went ahead and added a good couple cards onto it. Of course, the first one we have that really works well for the deck is Shalai, Voice of Plenty. Of course, reason being is that everything you planeswalkers I control and everything other creatures have hexproof, which is a great resource for the deck. Kiki Jiki. Of course, putting tokens in the deck is the main part of what you want to do with it. So of course he's definitely in here. That definitely helps a lot. Emma Tundras, of course, prevents all damage that would be dealt to creature tokens you control. Always extremely handy. This actually came in the deck. You can actually tell what came in the precon by that little symbol on the card. If that's in it, came with the precon, it means you don't have to go out of the way to get it yourself. Quartzwood Crasher. Whenever one or more creatures you control with trample deal damage to a player, create XX green dinosaur creature tokens with trample, where X is the amount of damage those creatures dealt to that player. Of course, I believe he's the only dinosaur in the deck, but that doesn't matter. You will still get that green dinosaur beast token, and with the other enchantments and instants in here, you can multiply these very quickly. Of course, Rasta of the Endless Web. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with a reach. Of course, this is always good because whenever your opponents activate something, you will get a token nonetheless. That is value for you. Even if it's just chump blockers, they still really work well for you. Spore Web Weaver. Now, there is a reason why I added this card. Reach hexproof from blue. Whenever Spore Web is dealt damage, you gain 1 life and create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. Of course, it makes tokens, which is important, but there is a card that I added specifically for him. This guy right here, Terror of the Peaks. Spells your opponents cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Terror of the Peaks deals damage equal to that creature's target power to any target. Now, there is an infinite combo with this, if you can figure it out. As long as you have Terror of the Peaks on the field, whenever you put Spore down, he will be dealt damage. And whenever he's dealt damage, you will gain a life, and you'll get that 1/1 green sapperling creature token, repeating the cycle again and again. Especially with the other enchantments we have in the deck that will be infinite tokens and infinite life. If you can get this off, you pretty much can just make a swarm of little green sapperling creatures and just overrun your opponents like a boss. Karametra, God of Harvest. Of course, as long as your devotion of green and white is less than 7, she's not a creature. Whenever you cast your creature spell, you may search your library for a forest or plains, put it onto the battlefield tap. This is always good for ramp, in my opinion. Usually I don't use her as a creature, but it's just good to have. You know, it's always nice to be able to fetch lands whenever it is needed. That's always nice to have. Desolation Twin. When you cast a Desolation Twin, put 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature tokens onto the battlefield. Again, just makes a copy of itself when it enters the field, but of course with all the enchantments we have in here, this will multiply very, very quickly. Woodland Champion. This card right here might be one of the better cards in the deck. It's so good. Whenever one or more creature tokens enters the battlefield under your control, put that many +1/+1 counters on Woodland Champion. Now, keep in mind, there are a lot of cards on here that will double the tokens that you put onto the field, going from 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 and to 32. This can get big fast. So it could be a very big threat for your opponent, and they might not even see it coming, which is always good. Elder Gargaroth. Vigilance, reach trample whenever it attacks or blocks. You can choose one, either gain 3 life, draw a card, but the most important one, of course, is create a 3/3 green beast creature token. Token, of course, if you haven't caught it already, is the word of the deck. So this is very, very good. It's actually one of my better cards, one of my more favorite cards actually, that I like to use on here. Thragtusk. Whenever it enters the battlefield, you gain 5 life, and if it leaves the field, you create a green creature token. Oh, of course, it's good. Olron, Frostfang. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. Death Touch is kind of a menacing thing. I don't care what anybody says. It's a menacing thing. Does not matter if you have 1/1s or a 10/10. That will die. Either they take the damage or it will take it down with it. Sakura Tribe Elder. I feel like it's always important to have one of these in the deck, just to kind of as a fodder to kill, grab a land, and then just shuffle your deck. I feel like it always works. It always helps out for anything. Celestia Eulogist. For a 2 and a green, exile this creature card from a graveyard, then populate. Populate, you create a token that's a copy of a creature token you control. Now this is where we're starting to get interesting. Populate is going to be a big keyword in the deck, where you'll be able to make 1 go to 2, go to 4, go to 8, and so on and so forth. You'll be able to ransack your opponents quickly and effectively. Avenger of Zendikar. When Avenger of Zendikar enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 green plant creature token for each land you control. This can get dumb quick. Landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a +1/+1 counter on each plant creature you control. Yeah, my wife actually, this is one of her favorite cards actually. It's in every card, it's in every deck that she has, and whenever it comes out, everybody just groans because they know that something bad is about to happen. Very, very good card. I definitely suggest keeping this one in there. Giant Adiphage. Whenever a Giant Adiphage deals combat damage to a player, create a token that's a copy of him. So again, populating and doubling those, plus his own effect. You can already see where this is going. This can get redonkulous really, really fast. Samut, Voice of Dissent. Now, she doesn't, populate or make tokens, but she is very, very good for these kinds of decks because other creatures you control have haste. Now, of course, these tokens will come in. They will have Summoning Sickness, but because of Samut and another enchantment I have in the deck, they will be able to attack quickly. And of course, that is always, always scary for your opponents. Trostani, Silenzia's Voice. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to that creature's toughness. It's always good just to have, some life gain, especially when tons of creatures are going to be entering. This will help you a lot. Feldom of the Third Path. Create a token that's a copy of target creature card in your graveyard, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste and sacrifice it at the beginning of the next step. Again, more token creation. Rampaging Ballots, same thing. Landfall, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you may create a 4/4 green beast creature token. And last but not least, Windmake Rock. This one's a little tricky. Raid. When Windmake Rock enters the battlefield, if you attacked with a creature this turn, so after you've attacked, create a 3/4 white bird creature token with flying. And whenever it attacks, you gain 1 line for each attacking creature. So you always want to summon this after your attack phase, or during your second main phase, so you can get that token off, and then obviously multiply those to make more of a bird army for you. Starting off with the enchantments, we've got 11. Of course, one of the most important ones are the beginnings. Doubling Season. If an effect would put 1 or more tokens onto play under your control, it puts twice that many into play instead. If an effect would place 1 or more counters on a permanent you control, it places twice that many on that permanent instead. So this works for token as well as planeswalkers. So I didn't know that actually when I first started playing Magic. So this works for planeswalkers as well. So those loyalty counters will always go up twice, which is fantastic. And again, for a token deck like this is going to be very, very, very crucial. Parallel Lives. If an effect would put 1 or more tokens into the battlefield under your control, it puts twice that many of those tokens onto the battlefield instead. Insane card. Suggest to always get these for token decks, for green token decks. Anointed Procession does the same thing. If an effect would create 1 or more tokens under your control, it creates twice that many instead. You can kind of see the theme of where this is going. Primal Vigor. If 1 or more tokens would be put onto battlefield, twice that many of those tokens are put on the battlefield instead. Here's the kicker though. If 1 or more +1/+1 counters will be placed on a creature, twice that many +1/+1 counters will be placed instead. Do you guys remember Woodland Champion, the one we talked about earlier? If both of these are on the field and you just make an insane amount of tokens, her +1/+1 counters will double. So if you made 10 tokens, she'll be a 12/12. But if this is out, she'll be a 22/22. It is insane value. You do not want to miss out on that. Trust me. Growing ranks, of course, at the beginning of your upkeep, you populate, so you will get to create a token that's a copy of a creature token you already control. Very, very nice. Doubling your forces, of course. Elemental Bond. Whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you get to draw a card. Card draw is very important in Magic. We should know this. Colossal Majesty. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you draw a card. Absolutely. Asceticism. I can't read, guys. Asceticism. There you go. Creatures you control can be the targets of spells or abilities your opponents control, which is fantastic. They will leave your tokens alone to be able to run free. And of course, it's always nice to regenerate a creature if somebody tries to kill it. Fires of Yavimaya. So you guys know how Samut gave haste. This enchantment gives haste as well, so you have multiple outlets to be able to attack quickly as soon as your tokens come into the field. Warstorm Surge. This is a card that I added in the deck just because I thought it'd be nice, and it has worked in the past. But of course, it's all personal choice. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under your control, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature or player. The main tokens that you might be creating with this deck are Rhino tokens because of Ghired. When Ghired enters the battlefield, you will create a 4/4 green Rhino token creature with trample. And when he attacks, you get to populate. So you populate that Rhino to make a second one. All of those Rhinos are 4/4s. And especially with all of the doubling enchantments for tokens that we have, whenever they come in, this is going to be just doing damage to any target, either a creature or a player. So if you make 10 Rhinos at once, they're all 4/4s. That is 40 damage to a player or to a monster. That's killing somebody right off right then and there in one swift move. Song of the World Soul, of course, whenever you cast a spell, you populate. Easy peasy populating is always nice. Again, this one came in the deck, so a lot of good populate cards actually came in the precon. There wasn't a lot to update, but yeah, definitely check these out and do a little more research on the populate ability. it's nice. It's really, really good. Going on to the instance, we've got 12. So we'll start off with Harrow. Of course, some ramp is always nice. Just as an additional cost to Harrow, sacrifice a land, search your library for up to 2 basic lands, and put them onto the battlefield. Mind you, they do not come in tapped, which is always nice. I mean, you get to sacrifice a land, but hey, you get 2 that are not tapped, so you can use those to your advantage. Slice and Twain. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. You get to draw a card. It's always nice to just have that destructing ability, especially with those annoying enchantments that might be causing you damage over time or keeping your monsters tapped. It's always nice to have this. Sundering Growth does the same thing, destroy target artifact or enchantment, but you get to populate. So on top of destroying something, you get to double your forces on your side of the field. Value is nice. Repeat after me. Beast Within. Destroy target permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. So in this one, you get to destroy something. You won't get the creature token. Your opponent does. But you still get to destroy something. And at instant speed, which is always nice. So if there's a threat and you just want to get rid of it quick, here's your answer. Nature's Chant. Destroy target artifact or enchantment. Again, destroying something. Eladamri's Call. Search your library for a creature card. Reveal that card, put it onto your hand. It's practically a tutor. It's really, really nice, but for creatures. And in this deck, we've got 23 creatures. It's always nice to just be able to grab whatever we need at a moment's notice. You know, instant speed, do it before your opponent's turn ends. You got what you need for next turn, and then you can move on. Naya's Charm. You get to choose one. You deal 3 damage to a creature. Return target card from a graveyard to its owner's hand, or tap all creatures target player controls. If you're feeling threatened, it's an instant speed. Tap everything so they can't attack you, and then they gotta end the turn or do something else. But I like these kinds of decks, these kinds of cards where you have options. It's always nice at a moment's notice. Second Harvest. For each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. See, this is insane. This card has won me games when I tell you that, guys. The most tokens I've ever had on the field was 164. 164 rhinos, spiders, and sapperlings because of this card. It is simply insane. For each token creature you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. Yeah, this can outrun people quick, and it's at instant speed. So if something's about to happen, you feel threatened, you feel like you're about to lose the game, they're about to attack with a ton of stuff, instant speed this, create a massive amount of army tokens, and just chump block everything. By the time it gets to your next turn, it'll be as if you lost nothing. Druid's Deliverance. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn, and then you populate. So again, bringing back that defense, they attack you with something hard, might be even game winning. You use this to prevent all of that, and you get to populate. Again, doing your forces a big favor by multiplying. Rootborn Defenses, populate, but creatures you control gain indestructible until the end of turn. So it's always, again, you get to amass your forces and protect them all at the same time, and instant speed. Always great to have. Tristani's Judgment. Exile target creature, then you populate. Again, board removal, always nice. And you get to populate as well. Swords of Plowshare. Exile target creature. Its controller gains life equal to its power. Now, if you are new to Magic, never be afraid to either use your life as a cost or give a little life to your opponent, because it's always going to plus for you in the end, such as this. If they've got a creature that you just cannot get off the board, it's indestructible, it's been threatening you for way too long, you exile it for 1, but they get to gain life equal to its power, which is fine. You got the threat off the board. Most likely everybody's going to look at you with a sigh of relief and say thank you, because this has happened many, many times. Going to the sorceries, of course, we've got 8. Cultivate, always nice to ramp. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put them onto the battlefield, tap, and the other onto your hand, and then you get to shuffle. Rampant Growth. Search your library for a basic land card, put it into play, tapped, and you shuffle your library. Easy peasy ramp, always nice. Now, Hate Mirage. Choose up to 2 target creatures you don't control. for each of those creatures, create a token that's a copy of that creature. Those tokens gain haste, but you exile them at the beginning of the next end step. Again, this is always nice to have because when you make copies, the ones that you made copies out of Hate Mirage will disappear, but the ones that you've populated will get to stay. So you'll practically be taking their own creatures for yourself, and you'll get to do anything you need with them. Pretty much use them against your own opponent, which is always nice. Gelatinous Genesis. This one I actually added in simply because it create XXX ooze creature tokens. So I feel like this would come in handy just in case you need tokens in general. Again, there's a lot of enchantments that double these tokens. So even if you decide to make five 5/5 green ooze creature tokens, if you have your enchantments out, that could be 10, 20, 25, whatever. Out of one little card, I feel like that makes the big difference. Heat Shimmer. Create a token that's a copy of target creature, except it has haste, and at the beginning of the end step, exile that permanent. Again, you have to exile it at the beginning of the next end step, but with the populated cards, there's so many in this deck that you'll be able to make tokens out of that token to keep, and you'll be doubling your forces in no time for practically nothing. Full Flowering. Populate X times, of course, paying that X cost twice, and making more tokens for your army. Hour of Reckoning. Convoke. Your creatures, if you don't know what this means, your creatures can help you cast a spell. Each creature you tap while casting the spell pays for one or more mana of that creature's color. So you can actually tap your tokens if you have way too many. For this, you don't even have to tap your own mana, which is fantastic, and destroy all non-token creatures. Everything else, it's a massive board wipe for everything except tokens. So all your tokens will live, everything else will die, and you can swing for game at that moment. And of course, Savage Twister. Savage Twister deals X damage to target creature, of course, X being whatever you want to pay. Again, this does to every creature, even yours, so you do have to be careful, but this deck populates so fast to where, honestly, it's nothing that you should worry about too much. Starting with the artifacts, we've got 6. Soul Ring, of course, one of my personal favorites, actually, comes with the deck. Arcane Signet is, again, another good card just to use for if you need mana. Very, very good card for 2. Lightning Greaves. So the reason I added this, equipped creature has haste and shroud. Shroud means it cannot be targeted by spells or abilities, even your own. So you have to be careful. But the reason this is in here is to protect those main creatures that create your tokens. So you can continue to make tokens no matter what, and it'll keep it safe unless they destroy Lightning Greaves itself, of course. Throne of Geth. You tap this, sacrifice an artifact, proliferate. So choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind already on there. So +1/+1 counters, like on Woodland Champion, this works well with it, and it just helps it grow much bigger for your defenses. Mimic Vat. Imprint. Whenever a non-creature token dies, you may exile that card. If you do, return each other card exiled with Mimic Vat to its owner's graveyard. 3, and tap this, create a token that's a copy of a card exiled with Mimic Vat. It gains haste, but you exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So this allows you to create tokens out of pretty much anything. And then when you populate them, they do have to be exiled at the beginning of the next end step. But again, you will populate this yourself, and the copy that Mimic Vat created will exile, but the copy you made with populate with other cards will get to stay. Again, more populating ramp for the field itself. Helm of the Host. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a token that's a copy of equipped creature, except the token isn't legendary. If equipped creature is legendary, that token gains haste. The reason this is in here is to add to Ghired. You attach Helm of the Host Ghired, as well as you attach Helm first, and then you attach Lightning Greaves, so he's untouchable. And when he attacks, he'll create a copy of himself. Therefore, every time he attacks, you populate. So you get to populate twice, 3 times, then 4 times, and so on and so forth. It's a really, really fun combo to do. It just comes out of left field, and most people honestly do not look forward to this, which is always nice to just see their faces whenever it does happen, of course. Coming in with the Planeswalkers, we got 3. Vivian, Monster's Advocate, of course, I had to add her in here. You can look at the top card of your deck at any time. Really powerful ability, in my opinion. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. So if you see a creature that you've got on there that can populate, you can cast it right away. Of course, she makes green beast tokens, absolutely, which is fantastic. And then the -2 is when you cast your next creature spell this turn, search your library for a creature card with lesser converted mana cost, put it onto the battlefield. So a searcher and a free cast, which is fantastic, especially looking to populate. Again, like I said, populate is the word with this deck, so you are going to hear me say it often. The next is, of course, the boy, Garruk Unleashed. Up to 1 target creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample. Just beefy boys all day long. -2, create a 3/3 green beast creature token. Then if an opponent controls more creatures than you, you put a loyalty counter on Garruk. So you -2, but if they have more creatures, this will go up by 1, which is great. And then its ultimate, of course, you get an emblem at the beginning of your end step. You may search your library for a creature card and put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. If this ever does get to 7, it usually doesn't. It does draw a lot of hate. But if it does, that's free summons for you. That emblem is permanent. If you do not know what that means, that emblem you get for the rest of the game. It cannot be taken away by no card effect. So every turn, you will get a creature card onto the battlefield for free, which is fantastic. And then, of course, Luca, Coppercoat Outcast. The reason he's in the deck is he's actually one of my favorite Planeswalkers. His ability is exile the top 3 cards of your library. Creature cards exile this way gain. You may cast this card from exile as long as you control Luca. So it kind of gives you a second hand in exile as long as he's on the field. If he's not on the field and if he dies and you exile those cards, they're kind of lost, which stinks. But usually, people tend to kind of avoid him a little bit, and even then, you can cast those cards right then and there if you have the mana for it. -2, exile target creature you control, then reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that with a higher converted mana cost. Put that card into the battlefield, and the rest on the bottom of your library. So you're trading up for creatures, which is always nice. It's always good, of course. Never a bad thing. If he ever does get to ulti, which I personally have never gotten him to ulti, they usually don't let me. -7, each creature you control deals damage equal to its power to your opponent. So again, going back to those rhinos, there are 4/4s. If you have a ton of them and you somehow get to ulti him, that's definitely game for somebody. Most definitely. All of the lands. I've got 37 lands in this deck. Of course, you have to go with Command Tower, one of my personal favorites. Temple of the Gods. Hopefully you don't get Jimmy Wonged, but add 2 mana to your mana pool. You activate this ability only if you have 5 or more lands. I feel like that's always good. Jungle Shrine, of course, comes in tapped, but you do get to add either a mountain, forest, or plains, which, of course, we definitely need in this deck. You have your typical land searchers: Myriad Landscape, Evolving Wilds, Naya Panorama, Fateful Passage, all needed to search out lands, to thin out the deck, and of course to get to your good creatures faster. Silencia Sanctuary adds 2, but you got to return the land to your hand. Comes in tapped, of course, always nice. Great Pelt Refuge, same thing. Enters the battlefield tapped, you gain 1 life. You can either add a forest or a plains. Blossoming Sands, same exact thing. Croissant Verge. So when it enters the battlefield, it comes in tapped. You can tap it for a colorless, or you can tap 2 in itself, sacrifice it, search your library for a forest or a plains, and it comes into the battlefield tap. Cinderglade. You can either use this for a mountain or a forest. It enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands, which is always nice to have. Kazandu Refuge, same exact thing, enters the battlefield tapped, you gain a life. Either you can tap it for a forest or a mountain. Rugged Highlands, same exact thing. Forest or mountain comes in tapped, you gain a life. And of course, we've got our typical forests and plains, and of course, our mountains. The deck is a lot of fun, and this is actually the first precon that I ever bought for myself that I actually souped up, took time and researched, and bought the cards for it. If you are freshly new to Commander, you're just very curious about it, definitely I suggest to get a precon. The precons are fantastic products. They come with everything you need. You can just, right out of the box, sleeve it up, have a quick game with your friends, see what style benefits for you. What style do you like? Me personally, love the tokens. Tokens are awesome. You know, I fell in love with them as soon as I played with them. And if you're curious about where to buy a precon deck, power9games.com. They are a fantastic store. They've got any precon that you might be interested in with fast shipping, cheap prices of course, and if you're looking for deck boxes and sleeves, they've got you covered from any color that you might want. Your favorite color, your least favorite color, for some odd reason, if you want to use that color in the first place, they've got you covered. Power9games.com. But that is going to wrap up the video. Thank you guys so much for sticking around if you did to the end of the video. Again, like, comment, subscribe. We are trying to make a lot more deck tech videos just to show people how we play our decks. If you have a card that you think that I should use in the deck, please put it down in the comments below. If you saw one in here that you were like, oh wow, I didn't think that would be in there. Why is that in there? Put it in there, I'll reply. We'll let you know why I like it, why it's my personal, choice to put that in there. Thank you guys for sticking around. We will definitely try to make more of these, and we'll catch you in the next video. This is Sonny, aka Daddy Pig, to remind you guys, keep up with the upkeep. For all of your Magic needs, remember to head to power9games.com.